Hello, welcome back. This is part 3. We are almost done with this sock. I hope you're enjoying it. Hope you've made some progress. Here's my progress. I know it turns all over itself. It's hard to get a really good picture, but once it's on your foot, it's going to look great. So we've got our cuff, we've got our leg, we've turned our heel, and we've worked down our foot. So when you get down to the very end, what you want to do is put it on your foot. Put it on your foot, and what we want is, I'm starting here, right about where this final gray section is. And what we're going to do is we are going to decrease down. We're going to get this nice slant for the toes, because we don't want our toe to be, boxy. So we're going to transition like this. So put it on your foot, measure it down. Yeah, give it about 2 inches maybe. 1 3/4 inches to 2 inches for the end of the toe. And you can decrease it down. If it's not working for your foot, try it on again. Just rip it back a little bit and tweak the amount of decreases that you do. Start them a little bit later, do them more aggressively. Every foot is different. And so what you want to do is get it right for your own. And that might take a little bit of tweaking. I do my final Kitchener stitch, which is a graft. That's how we're going to join these together so that there's no seam. I do mine with 8 stitches on each needle. Some people do 10. Some people do 12. Some people do 4. So again, you're going to have to figure that out through a little bit of trial and error and practice, but 8 works well for me. So on the camera today, I'm going to show you how to get this nice slant. It's done with decreases again, just like we did when we did our gusset, and we decreased them down a little bit, but we're going to be doing them more aggressively. We're going to be doing them on the top of the sock and the bottom. So 4 decreases per row. And again, we're going to do it every other row, just like we did with the gusset, so that it's a nice gradual decrease. So come join me on the other camera, and I'll show you how to finish this sock up. 1 needle, 2, and needle 3. So on needle 1, what you're going to do is you are going to knit to the final 3 stitches. And when you get to the final 3 stitches, we're going to do a knit 2 together and a knit. We're going to do that right slanting decrease. Then what we're going to do is on this the top portion of the sock, we're going to do decreases on both sides. So we don't want another slant in that same direction. We want the other direction. We want a left slant. So we are going to do a knit 1 and then an SSK. Then we're going to knit until 3 stitches remain, and we're going to do another knit 2. So you just follow the instructions. That's the easiest thing to do. Knit 2 together, and then a knit 1. So we've done a slant on each side. You can see, hopefully you can see those slants. Now we've got one more to do. And because we want this slant to go to the left again, we're going to do another SSK. Knit one, slip, slip, and knit them together. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches on each of these needles and 14 on the back. That gives us a total of 28 stitches, and that's what we want. So we're going to, because this is the way the pattern is, we do a row of decreases and then we just knit, we knit a row around without any decreases. That's the way the pattern is. Until 28 stitches, we're going to just knit all of these stitches. And it goes fast because every row you're decreasing. I've done some scarves and patterns where you start with a few stitches and you increase them up. Those are hard. What you want is you always want to start out with a lot of stitches and then decrease down. It's much more, it's more positive. It's easier to keep the work going when you're increasingly going to fewer stitches rather than to more. And this is just a small amount of stitches now that we're talking about. We've got this needle to go, needle number 3. All right, so we are done with our 2-row decreases, and now we want the slant to become more pronounced. We were going with a slant like this, now we want it to be more like that. So we're going to do the decreases every row until there are only 16 stitches. And for 16 stitches, what we want is 4 stitches on each of these small needles. Here's the helper. So basically we're doing 3 rounds. 3 rounds, or I should rephrase it, the next 3 rounds are all going to be decrease rounds. Or, like I said, if you have a wider toe area, you might want to stop here. You know, it's all in what looks good to you, what feels good to you. So what you want to do, of course, is to have an even number of, or a like number of stitches on the needles between the front needle, needle number 2, and the 2 under the foot needles, needles 1 and 3. As long as all of your stitches are the same count, other words, if they divide evenly by 2, then you're good. So you might not even want to do these final aggressive ones, or you might want to start your aggressive decreases earlier. So there's 1 round, and remember, we're not going to be doing the all knit in between. We're just going to go from that right into another round of decreases. And just to speed this process up, 4 stitches on needles 1 and 3, 8 stitches on the back. Our instructions say to work until 16 stitches remain, so we're there. What I want to show you is to get to the end. All we're going to do is knit these stitches that were on needle 1. And that is just so that our yarn is somewhere where we can access it, okay? And now what we're going to do is a Kitchener stitch. And our needles, we're done with our needles, so we can put those away. We need to cut our yarn, and I don't have scissors at the ready, but I do have another sock at the ready, which is in the same position. It's got the Kitchener stitches here. And what you may notice is the way my colors worked out, they're not exact. They're close, but they're not exact. So what I might do is I might just rip this one back a little bit. There would be fewer stitches, or the stitch count would be different in the grafting, but I don't really think that it would be that noticeable. What's more noticeable is the color. So sometimes you can sacrifice the proper number of stitches so that the color works out, because that's where your eye is going to go. So again, it's one of those things, you know, work to your own taste, you know, see what does it for you. I could lengthen this one, but I think that would be more noticeable. So I think what I'm going to do is take one of the decrease rounds off. So I need to cut my work instead of using that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to, we don't want to cut too much. This is a good length. It's enough to work with. It's more than enough to work with, because we're only going to be grafting this number of stitches. Kitchener stitch was actually invented by a gentleman in World War I, known as the Great War. He needed a way to get the toe of the socks so that they were less bulky. What we want to do, we're now getting rid of the number row of needles. This is going to be the front needle. This is going to be the back needle. And what we want to do is we want to knit. Just pretend that this is a knitting needle. We want to knit into the stitch, and we want to take this stitch off. Then we want to purl into this second stitch, leave it on. Now we're going to go to the back needle. We're going to purl and take it off, and then we are going to knit and leave it on. And that's all we're going to be doing. We're going to repeat that, and you can talk yourself through it. Knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Okay, isn't that fun? So we always start on the front needle with a knit and take it off, purl and leave it on, and make sure, you see my middle finger has just entered the scene because the back stitch was trying to escape. And when I'm taking it off, you don't have to go through that lengthy motion that I did at the beginning. You can just flick it so that it's on your needle, but you haven't actually pulled the yarn through yet. Go in and do the purl stitch, and then do it all in one motion. Purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, knit off, on, almost there, purl off, knit on, and don't stop to look at anything, just go with it. Just have faith that it will work out, because you don't want to move your hands when you're in the middle of this motion. I find that that sort of messes you up, so just go on faith. Purl off, knit on. Now we've only got 2 stitches left. We're going to knit off and purl off. Make sure to catch those stitches. And now what we have done is we have done this nice graft. A graft is when you bind 2 things together. You can't even see. What we did with our needle and yarn is we mimicked the motion of the knitting needles. See, it's fascinating, isn't it? It's completely seamless. Now, these ends, you know, they get a little bit bulky, and what you're going to do is you're going to weave this in, you know, as well as you can. There are tutorials online of how to get this so that it's very unnoticeable, you know, and you don't want a lot of bulk there. I generally just kind of go into the sock. And I probably do it differently every single time I do socks, to be perfectly honest. But go inside the sock and just kind of pull it down a little bit. And then what we're going to do, my hand is already in my sock. So let's just flip it inside out. And I'm going to get a different needle. This is my big curved needle. I wanted a nice big needle that you could see. But I'm actually going to switch to my smaller, very pointy needle. And I'm going to put my hand back in my sock. This is where the heel is. This is the bottom. This is the bottom of the foot. This is the top of the foot. I like to weave in kind of on the top of the foot, because when you're walking, let's face it, you're walking on the bottom of your foot, right? And see how I'm just gently skimming these stitches? I'm not taking a big bite. I'm just very, very gently going in some of the stitches, just a little tiny bit. And I'm going on a diagonal. I'm kind of matching the color, going on a diagonal, just in the very, very tips. I'm not going in the whole stitch. I'm intentionally separating stitches and just picking up just mere hairs. This will all nestle together. It will sort of felt up when you're walking. When you're wearing the socks, the warmth of your foot, maybe a little bit of moisture from your foot is enough to get these so that they're felted a little bit. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Take my huge scissors here. Scissor overkill. And that's it. Turn it right side out. And when you're wearing this on your foot, you've got a nice slant. You've woven in your ends, so they're not going to come out. It's not bulky. I can't feel where I've woven in the end of the yarn. I can't feel it at all. So there's your sock. That's the finished sock. So I'll meet you at the other camera. So here we have it. A pair of hand knit socks. I know they're not looking great right now. Some people block their socks. They make sock blockers. They're usually wood in the shape of a sock, and you can wet wash your sock and then pop the sock blocker in, and they retain a nice shape. I don't bother with that. It's one more thing to buy. When you put these on your feet, they will be fine. They will be fine. They'll stretch out. The way that I like to store my socks is to kind of, stretch them out a little bit, fold them over, and they stay nicely like this. And then when you put them on, they fit your foot, and they're going to be fine. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this project. This is the final pair. This is the way my colors worked out. I did do the toes that I was just mentioning. I just went with what I had, and I did my grafting. Didn't like it because what I saw, trying to hold them steady, what I saw was the color was different, and so I ripped it back. One has 8 stitches grafted, the other one has 10. And honestly, when you wear them and they're in a shoe, who's gonna know? And like I said, everyone's feet are different. Well, you can have 2 feet that are different also. And so sometimes maybe one is, I know for me, one of my feet is longer than the other. So with these, I knit them the same so the color would line up. But sometimes I knit one sock just slightly longer because I've got one foot that's slightly longer. So there's a lot of leeway when you make a pair of socks. I know I keep gonna toss one aside. You've seen the pair. Socks are fun. There's something that can be kept in a bag at the ready whenever you are on your way out the door. And this line that you're seeing right here, this is from where I had one of my needles. When you wear your socks and when you wash them for the first time, this will kind of go away. It's almost like having a wrinkle in clothing that you've just bought. It just needs to settle in a little bit. But yeah, socks are good for on the go. It's amazing how you can do a few rounds at a time and how they really, really add up. And I like to keep a sock on the go. Like I said in an earlier video, I like to walk, and I often carry a sock with me, and I can just knit some of the, I go down this portion and I go down the foot, just walking and doing stockinette stitch. I don't do any of the tricky bits when I'm out walking, obviously. But I wanted to show you how the colors ended up on this sock. We've got the majority of the blues up here on the heel and on the toe. Now, what you will also find when you go shopping is you often now find little sock kits, and there will be a big hank of yarn for the sock and then a smaller one. That's for the cuff, the heel, and the toe. Some people like to do these in colors that say you've got all these grays and whites in here. You might have a solid white or a solid gray for the toe, heel, and cuff. And that makes sock knitting fun too, to have, the colors. Oh, gosh, I'm tired. These socks, I made my socks in about a week, the pair. And that was quite a lot of knitting, concentrated knitting. But I'm so glad that you guys asked for this sock tutorial. I've enjoyed my sock knitting. Now I've got a brand new pair of socks all ready to tuck away for the spring. I generally wear socks in the winter, the late fall and into the winter. And I wear them less so. Early spring, I'll still wear a lot of socks, and then I taper off, and I don't wear the socks all summer long. There's a lot of people in Canada, in Sweden, in colder areas that wear socks all year round, and that's great. That's great. Um, Now, what I like to do also is I hand wash my hand knit socks, even though these are made of a sort of washable yarn. I still like to accumulate them and hand wash them. I usually do them in the washing machine. I will just toss in all my hand knit socks, a little bit of detergent or wool wash or something, you know, get that going through the wash water and just let it sit there. Let it sit for, a half an hour, agitate the water a little bit every now and then just put the washing machine on spin, and it'll get all the water out. You'll have damp socks. Then lay them out, like this, under a fan, across the top of the shower rod. They dry very, very quickly, and I think that it helps keep them longer. Now, what you want to look for is wear. When you start seeing some wear, oh, and I don't have it at the ready, but when you're done making these socks, and incidentally, this pair of socks, this is about 6 inches in length. I did not need my third ball of yarn. I did not need it, so that's going to go back to Michael's. But I did have a little bit left over. I wound it into a very small ball. Keep that. Keep it somewhere safe. And when you need to darn your socks, now what we did with the Kitchener stitch, and we threaded our yarn through a needle, you're basically doing the same thing. What you want to do is sort of go the way the yarn goes. Go the way you knit it. Just do it with the yarn and a needle, a tapestry needle, a darning needle, and it will help protect your socks for longer. If you get a small hole, deal with it right away before it gets to be a big hole. And, and then you'll have your socks longer, because it's easier to sit for 15 minutes and darn a pair of socks than it is to make a whole new pair. So I sure hope you had fun. If you have any questions at all, just let me know. Leave a comment, let me know, and I can, this hair, I don't know, this hair is like poofing out. If you have any questions at all, I can do a Q&A. If there are some bits that you're still not sure about, can you show us again? It was unclear. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to do it. That could be a part 4. If you need a part 4, I'm happy to do it. But I do have, like I said, I have some instructions that are going to be on my site. I'm charging $1 for it just to put a price on it, but it's a little bare bones. It's not in detail. It's more of a 1-page, here's what you want to do. It's sort of like a reminder. Okay, now you do this. Oh, gotcha. I've got the numbers down there. So if you want that to refer back to, that's a resource. I'm trying to make it easy. I'm not a sock expert. I think I said at the outset, I don't do a whole lot of socks. I've got maybe 20 pairs of socks that I've made. I've gifted a lot. And yeah, when I start running low, I'll make a pair of socks. So I make maybe 1 or 2 pairs of socks a year. And I might go a year without making any at all, because I really prefer to make sweaters. And I want you to know, if you were able to knit a pair of socks, you are more than ready to make a sweater. Sweaters are much easier. The only thing with sweaters that people don't like sometimes is the seaming. I still use seams. I knit my sweaters for the most part flat, and then I sew them together. But seaming is not that hard. So if you can get through a pair of socks, people like to start with socks when they're new knitters. Socks are challenging. They can be challenging. So, um, you know, you're more talented than you think. You know more about knitting than you give yourself credit for. You've made a pair of socks. It's an accomplishment. Take pride in them. I'm going to take pride in my socks because they're the fastest pair of socks I've ever knit. I usually have the sock knitting that kind of is on the go. I can knit a pair of socks over a span of, a month or two because I'm not knitting them constantly. But these, I turned my attention to these and I got them done quickly for you. So thank you for joining me. And like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. If they're a quick question that I can answer in a comment, that's great. If there's some section of the sock that you're still not sure about, just let me know. I'm happy to help. So thank you. And if you are at all interested in the Afghan project, I will be going back to that. I'll do some more blocks. I'm going to show you how to sew those together so that if you're ready to make your Afghan, you're good to go. And I also might start in a little while. I might start a basic sweater. We'll save the socks and the hats and the scarves for next winter. But thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for joining me. Happy knitting. See you next time.